Afternoon, everyone. I'm calling the Monday, April 3rd Board of Supervisors regular meeting to order. If we could all stand for the Pledge of Allegiance and a moment of silence. I pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all. Moment of silence. Thank you.
Madam Chair, I'd like to make a motion to adopt the agenda as presented.
I'll second that motion.
We have a motion and a second discussion.
Yes, I'm just wondering how come we haven't received any update from our attorney in the current litigation? I thought we were supposed to receive an update this month. And the thing goes to trial on the 21st. This is the last time we'll meet as a board to do that except for the public hearing on the budget.
I don't know. We heard back from our attorneys or.
I emailed Mr. Capps upon receipt of Mr. Frazier's request and did not hear back from him until I think Friday, and he apologized for not being in. All the documents have been filed, and so I don't know that there's action for the board to take at this point.
Well, that's the question I have, and I did bring that out before to the board. How can an attorney file anything on behalf of the board if they've never met with us? How is that happening?
I mean,
Has anyone on the board had any contact with this attorney?
Mr. Frazier,
Wait a minute, I'm asked a question.
I was going to answer it.
Okay, so you had contact with him?
I haven't answered the question yet,
Well, that was my question.
and I was going to answer it. So may I?
Yes, sir.
I have not had any contact with the attorney at all. And what I would say, and I know you raised this question in a different context about board input to our attorney when we're involved in litigation. And I'll just state for your reference and for the record, it's my position we hire attorneys to represent us in matters of litigation. And frankly, I don't think I'm qualified to provide input to an attorney in a legal matter.
If they're representing this board, the elected governing body of this county, how can they represent us if they never meet with us?
So,
Well, let me further my question. Has anyone here sitting at this table had any contact with the attorney?
I have.
So you've had contact with
Mr.
him,
Goff and I have, yes.
but y'all weren't authorized to do any particular thing.
We didn't direct anything.
Then how is he representing us? How is he filing anything on behalf of the board if he's had no contact with us and no contact specifically with you in regard to what he's filing?
Certainly, I'm happy to engage and send questions to Mr. Capps. I can't speak on his behalf. My understanding is this is a legal matter related to parsing code statutes, et cetera. It's not a discovery process at this point. If we get to a discovery process and there are subjective decisions, I suspect that'll be more important, but I'm not a lawyer, I'm just guessing.
So no one has actually spoke with or authorized this individual during the process with the consent order or what he's filed on behalf of pleadings for the board?
Madam Chair, point of order, I believe the
I've
motion
got the
is to,
floor.
I believe the
This is
motion
the
is to
agenda.
adopt the agenda.
I've got a question about the agenda, sir.
What's
That's
the
what we're talking
question?
about.
What's
What
the
is
question?
The question is, how is this happening without board involvement?
what, the agenda?
And we were supposed to have some sort of an update today. That's what we were told several weeks ago in an email from Mr. Curry. Why is it not happening, and how is this happening without board input?
Do you want to add an agenda item to
We can add an agenda
talk
item
about this?
if you'd like
To discuss it?
to discuss it.
Well, I had asked for that prior to the agenda coming out. Why isn't it on there?
But you'd ask for a closed meeting, and you can't have a closed meeting for a discussion with legal counsel if legal counsel's not involved.
Well, then why, I don't understand. We've got a county attorney, we've got an attorney from the insurance company, and we don't have any attorney to speak to us with litigation on the 21st of April?
Mr. Frazier, I'll just add to what Mr. Curry said. I'm not an attorney. I work for a law firm, and we represent many clients who, when it comes to matters of appeal or normal litigation, with whom we do not interact because, frankly, we're in a procedural phase of this proceeding, and I don't see anything gained or lost by our lawyer doing the work that a lawyer is qualified to do. And I just want to reiterate that I, for one, do not feel left out by any means, and this is why we hire qualified legal counsel, and I don't think there's any input I could provide meaningfully to the litigation at this current stage. And I just want to make that clear for the record.
That's fine, sir. With all due respect, you can take that position, but you can't take a position for me. And I currently want to know what's going on.
So we can move on.
Madam Chair,
Do you want to add
there's
the agenda?
noise in the background here.
I think it's downstairs.
I'm sorry.
Do you want to add an agenda item to talk about?
If we can, yeah. I don't know, I guess it would be under old business.
So make a motion for G7.
Sounds good. I'll second that, yeah.
Got a motion to amend the agenda and add G7 discussion regarding court case, I don't know the number, but the April 21st court case.
I had offered the second to the motion, so I'll second the amended motion.
Okay.
Hold on, let's slow down. You have a motion on the table by Mr. Carney, seconded by Mr. Whitson to adopt the agenda as proposed.
Correct.
You had a motion on top of that to amend the motion, so I guess either you can just accept a friendly amendment and we'll move on with that, or we need to consider the motion to amend, which is made by who?
Accidentally by me, I think. Mr. Frazier seconded.
Okay. With that overrides, and I don't need to rescind, and you don't need to rescind, let's please adopt the agenda.
Okay. Donahue, Frazier, amend. So motion to amend the agenda,
All
to
those
add
in
the item G7.
7. All those in favor say aye.
Aye.
Aye. Any opposed? Okay. And now do we need the motion
And now you need it, now you will vote on the amended motion.
to adopt the agenda?
Yes.
The amended agenda. Anybody want to make that motion?
That's already been done.
Oh, that's
So,
already been done.
Yep,
Okay. All those in favor say aye.
Aye.
Aye. Any opposed? Thank you.
sorry.
That's okay. No, I appreciate your help. All right, moving into presentations, school report. Dr. Grimsey?
Sit down.
How about that? There we go. Good afternoon, happy spring from your friends at RCPS. March has come and gone so quickly, probably since there were so many fun and exciting things happening at the schools. Of course, the month began on such a positive note, especially on March 9th, where RCPS brought home the gold, so to speak, in academics, the arts, and athletics. On that same day, on March 9th, RCPS students achieved recognition, including our RCES students attaining first place rankings at the Virginia History Day competition. Our incredible Panther Band earned superior ratings in every category at their state assessment event. And of course, our girls varsity basketball team brought home its first ever state championship. What a way to start the month. Keeping the standard of excellence in our Road to Remarkable comprehensive plan, the 3 E's, enrollment, enlistment, employment, are the 3 trajectories outlined in our academic and career planning processes. Experiences at RCHS, including the Ag and Health Science Academies, FFA, Profile of a Graduate Work, all work together to ensure students are life-ready no matter the goal after high school. To that end, RCPS held many events for future readiness, including a military panel held on March 8th, where students were able to learn about the various branches of the U.S. military, a leadership and ethics conference offered to interested juniors at West Point, a senior mock interview event where seniors were able to test their career readiness skills interviewing with members of the community and about career pathways of interest, and receiving feedback, a 7th grade career fair where students displayed impressive boards, science fair style, about career pathways of interest, and a 3rd grade kids marketplace event, much like the reality store event at the high school, where students are given a career, a monthly salary, and various options to make decisions about the future in a fun game-like simulation. In celebration of student academic success, students joined the ranks of the National Honor Society in a special induction ceremony that was held among high school peers organized by student officers. Each of the inductees were selected based on achievement in the 5 tenets of the NHS: scholarship, service, leadership, character, and citizenship. This year, for the first time in our history, we also now have a chapter of the National Junior Honor Society, offering the opportunity for underclassmen to join the ranks of this prestigious student organization. Congratulations to all the students who were inducted. Switching gears to our CES, the PTO sponsored a very successful Fun Run Boosterthon, meeting their fundraising goal of $25,000 in order to purchase more modern playground equipment for the Upper Hill area. Students enjoyed fun prizes, music, and earning pledges by running laps in order to reach this goal. Thanks so much to RCPS PTO for their work in organizing this huge effort. The success of our school really does depend upon our partnerships with community organizations and agencies. We would like to extend a thank you to the Rappahannock County Sheriff's Office, Culpeper Police Department, and VDH for sponsoring the Hidden in Plain Sight workshop about the dangers of fentanyl and other substances plaguing our youth. We will continue to host these types of workshops and are planning to combine them on parent-teacher conferences and back-to-school nights to maximize attendance. Additionally, RCPS is partnering with the Rapp Department of Social Services for Child Abuse Prevention Month this month. Students can participate in a coloring contest and t-shirt design contest with the theme Every Child Matters. The winning design will be printed on t-shirts and will be available for purchase at events, and the coloring designs will be displayed at Sperryfest. Finally, another huge thank you to our Sheriff's Office for their prompt response in securing of the schools last week during our shelter-in-place incident. The teachers, staff, and law enforcement followed protocol, and in less than 2 minutes, all students were inside and secure in classrooms while the Sheriff's Office thoroughly swept the area. While it was the determination that there was no threat, the incident was a stark reminder of the importance of our safety trainings, crisis management planning, and how vital our SRO program is at the schools. If you recall, several years ago, the schools reduced its budget to allow additional funds to be allocated to the Sheriff's Office in order to ensure full-time SROs are in each of our schools at all times. We are so very grateful for this service and the ability of our local department to respond so quickly to keep our schools safe. As always, we thank you so much for your continued support and advocacy for our local public schools. We're at your service. Do you have any questions for me?
Dr. Grimsley, thanks very much for the report. And I also want to add that I saw that Jeff Atkins had been named VHSL
Coach of the
Class
Year.
1 Coach of the Year, which is awesome.
Yes,
and,
he was.
Congratulations to him and your whole sports support team over there at the school.
Thank you.
And I'd like to add that too. And I also want to thank you. For those of you who don't know, we're in the middle of budget season, and Dr. Grimsley has kindly showed up to almost, if not all of our meetings. And I just wanted to thank you for all your hard work and being available to discuss with us, and for your, honestly, your candidness. And it's not an easy task pulling together a school board budget or a county budget, but thank you. Yeah. And I wanted to thank Jeff Atkins too, for Coach of the Year. And go Lady Panthers!
Woo.
Awesome.
And I just want to say thank you for the Hidden in Plain Sight. That was quite the eye-opener in a not so positive way. But anybody that has children or children around other children really should be aware of the potential, even accidentally, to get some sort of interaction with, especially an opioid, which is very scary. And then the Narcan conversation with the Department of Health was very good to know that that is available. If people want to carry some on their person, it is legal and available to, with the health department, as long as they have it, it's free. I think I read the other day that it's now going to be available at pharmacies as well. But thank you so very much for that awareness.
Thank you.
Yep. All right. Thank you, ma'am.
Thank you very much.
Next is the Company 4 monthly report and the revitalization plan with Chief Gerald.
Raise the mic. Good afternoon. Thank you for allowing me to come and speak to you about the revitalization plan for Flint Hill Volunteer Fire Company. I've been here twice before talking on the same topic. I was appointed as the chief, but I'm not the only person behind the scenes working on day-to-day activities. What I'd like to do is just ask if they'll raise their hand. I have some of the board members here. I have Dave Bailey, Dr. Hugh Hill, and Tim Bills, all here. Oh, Patrick, I'm sorry, and Patrick O'Malley, who's, all of them were working very, I'll say tirelessly, especially over the last weekend because of the call volume, but working tirelessly to create a plan, a concept, if you will, on how to revitalize Flint Hill Volunteer Fire Department. I have a suspicion that some of the people in the audience are from the Flint Hill area and the Huntley area. If you would raise your hands if you live in that community. We do this for you. So thank you. So the goal of this plan is to identify areas of opportunity, of improvement if needed, but opportunity to ensure that our membership, our department, our apparatus, and our overall capability are responsive to the needs of our community. So what you found, and hopefully you've been able to see the revitalization plan as I prepared it, is a 45-page document, and it articulates the 13, what I considered at least, the 13 categories of topic of discussion identified in the resolution signed by this board on January the 26th. And so those 13 topics are outlined in the plan, and copies are available to whomever would like to see them. And I'll make sure to post that on our Flint Hill Fire Department webpage for access to others who haven't seen it. There's no magic in it, really. There's just a lot of hard work and a lot of focus on a lot of attention and a lot of detail where it's warranted and needed. An example is EMS services that we wanted to try and revive and to reestablish in our area. When I first came to you, I think it was on January the 6th, February the 6th of this year, I made two requests, I guess they were requests. One was that we be able to affiliate with the Rappahannock County Fire and Rescue Department so that we could regain that license. And a lot of work went into that process, working with Dr. Jenks as the OMD, working with Virginia OEMS, the Office of Emergency Medical Services, and work in-house for ourselves. And I'd be remiss if I didn't mention Sean Polster, who I know is in the room. Sean has been fantastic. As a representative of this county, he absolutely serves this community very well, and I'm pleased to be able to work with him. So we articulate in our plan, our revitalization plan, the work that went into making sure that we could run that ambulance. The second request I made was, of the February meeting, was to be able to relocate what we call ALS 1400, the Advanced Life Support vehicle, to our station. We were able to get our work done to affiliate to the county so quickly that really the restaging of that vehicle became overcome by events, really. Where now we're running ambulance calls, we've been running ambulance calls and supporting ALS 1400 and other advanced life support and basic life support in the county. So I think that we've met that goal. But in the plan, I articulate through the 13 elements all the different things that we've done and plan to do. Again, there's no real magic. I say that at one point, and I'm sure in the document, that this isn't rocket science. This is much harder. And I truly believe that, because this has to do with these people's lives and their properties and those things that they hold value. And so we're working hard to make sure that that happens for this community. So I'll answer any questions you might have.
Chief Gerald,
Yes, sir.
Thanks very much for the update, and I read the written revitalization plan with great attention, and I do appreciate that the plan tracks precisely with the goals near, mid, and long term that are articulated in the board's resolution that was adopted by a majority vote, and it's very helpful that you adopted that sequence of items that we had identified, and I encourage you to continue reporting back in that format and following that line of near, mid, and long-term goals.
Yes, sir.
I wonder if you might flesh out just a little bit in greater detail the decision as you described where events overtook your prior request to possibly position our advanced life support chase buggy wagon vehicle, whatever the nomenclature is,
Yes, sir.
and a company for during daytime hours. And I understand that your ambulance is running again, but I just want to make sure that operationally, that earlier idea, which has now been shelved and, as you said, overtaken by more current events, I just want to make sure that that is still not a valid concept operationally for maximizing ALS coverage in this part of the county.
Yes, sir. So the idea was to initially to have ALS 1400 staged at our station so that we would have some EMS presence, some emergency medical service presence in our community that could be immediately responsive to that community. By putting ambulance 1404 back in service as quickly as we did, and I think Sean can correct me, but I think it was something like 33 days, which seems almost a miracle that we were able to attain that goal so quickly. And I'm one of the people that was doing the work to get that, to enable that capability. I didn't expect it would happen as quickly as we did, but a lot of people forged forward to make that happen. So the idea was that we have immediate access to EMS care for the people of the community. When we were able to step up and expedite having the ambulance back in service, we essentially create that capability because if you recall, ALS 1400 meets us at the scene, or should I say we meet them at the scene. And we've done that multiple times. So that emergency access to care is already there. So repositioning it is almost not necessarily redundant, but unnecessary because they're already coming. An example call, and it was early in the process, early in the first few weeks that we had reestablished this capability for EMS, we had a gentleman who was inspecting the work of his construction company and to put a roof on his house, and the gentleman fell off the roof. And we were able to meet ALS 1400 on the scene on Fodder Stack Road. We met Medic 1 on the scene of that same call, and we in the ambulance. And it was determined immediately that that person would be flown by air care to a trauma center, which they were. We landed that helicopter at our station in the side yard where they call it the carnival grounds, and flew the patient to a trauma center. All of that happened seamlessly, without a script, without anything else other than everybody knowing exactly what to do and fulfill the role that they are either volunteering or being paid, in the case of ALS 1400, that they were required to do. Not all calls are that extreme, but we had either a cardiac or a difficulty breathing patient yesterday, and that person, same thing happened. Person was rendered immediate emergency care off of Hiddle's Mill, and the person received the care that they needed within the time constraints that are identified in the service level agreement that I mentioned last month. And so all of that sort of renders the need for having ALS 1400 be repositioned, sort of it negates that need. I know that there were requests for data and data analysis in the movement of that vehicle, and it just sort of became overcome by events, I think, at least in my perspective, as a result of the work that we did so quickly to reestablish our affiliation with the county.
And then my last question, I think many of us have seen that this past weekend was extremely busy for our entire fire and rescue system, and certainly my gratitude to all volunteers and our paid personnel for handling everything from fires to ATV accidents to flyouts to everything. I understand there was something in the range of 24 calls in a 27-hour period is what I read on our department website.
Yes, sir.
Very high level, could you just talk about Company 4's role in some of those calls and the extent to which those were fire responses or EMS responses or both?
Absolutely. I'd like to say this was an absolute example, a great example of county volunteer fire programs and EMS programs coming together to be responsive to a community in a very short notice, because those high winds really caused havoc in the county with down trees, down power lines. In some cases, like on West Street or West Lane in Flint Hill, the entire telephone pole snapped in half and landed in somebody's front yard. And I'd be remiss if I didn't identify the fact that the sheriffs were all over the county on practically every one of those calls. And then the people behind the scenes, the dispatchers that did an amazing job in providing the information that we needed to get to those calls, and then relaying that information back and forth to us in the process. We had, the majority of the calls seemed to be around power lines down, or trees that fallen on power lines, snapped the power line, and then now we have an active power situation on the ground. I was on a call yesterday, I think it was yesterday morning, sort of blends together. But I think I was out there for 3 or 4 hours, maybe more, maybe 5 hours. But we had an active power line, and it just kept surging and burning the ground and the metal, and it practically turned it back into carbon, as we found later. But we couldn't go near that situation. I couldn't go near that situation until the power was shut down, and then I could put the fire out around it. And by then, because the power had been surging for so long, when I put water on that fire and the ground was bubbling from the heat, and it had melted and sort of reformed carbon out of that power line. It's sort of scary when you think about that kind of a situation. I watched the wind blow. I was watching the wind movement. I was watching the wind speeds, because it was in an open field and it could have chased right up into Black Rock Farms. So we had that kind of a call. We had a situation where someone needed power in their house, and they started their generator, and it was in the garage, and then the generator caught fire. So we ended up in a structure fire. And so it was bouncing, and this is for all the companies. They're bouncing from one call to another. And in one situation, I think I had about a 2-minute break coming off of one call and getting dispatched on another. But that was the entire county running these kinds of calls. So God bless them for the work that they're doing as volunteers.
Thank you.
Yes, sir.
I would just like to express my gratitude and thank you all so very much for doing something that the community desperately needed. And I know this past weekend may have tested all of our companies. There was a lot going on, and I would like to thank all of them.
Yes.
Thank you for your clear-sightedness and your vision, and thank you for serving the community.
I would invite you to attend one of the Fire and Rescue Association meetings. That's where all the chiefs and all the members of the association gather. And I know they'd like to hear the same, because I'm surely not the spokesman of all the fire chiefs. I'm the newest member of the Fire Chiefs Association. But I'm sure they'd like to hear from you as well. Thank you. Thank you.
And I want to repeat what Van said. I just so appreciate the hours of you kind of giving up the lives you were leading to take this on. And I know it's got to be passionate. You know, you've got to feel the support that you're doing for the citizens has to come from the heart, or you wouldn't be doing it. So I really do appreciate that. And if you'll bear with me, I got stats from dispatch because I was listening to the pager on Saturday night. And from 1800, 6 o'clock to 6 a.m. the next morning, there were 75 total dispatched, but that was 17 fire and rescue and 58 sheriffs dispatched during that time. We had accidents, falls, chest problems, seizure, wires down. There were 4 of those that were we were lucky that the fields didn't really catch on fire and it wasn't worse. 5 outside fires, structure fire, and a mutual aid. Company 4 had 10 calls, and the wire down yesterday morning was from 6:30 in the morning to 11:52. So this weekend was proof positive of our volunteer system working well with our paid, and how they do team up and get the job done, no matter what. Our group of people is just amazing in this county. So thank you so very much.
Thank you.
Madam Chair, I have a question or two.
Yes, sir.
I really appreciate all the work that you're putting into not only running the calls, but the administrative side of it. Is a 45-page revitalization?
45-page. But there some pages only have a short narrative. Yes, sir. I could make it 65 if you like.
Put a page on it.
I just look at the pictures. I just wondered, did the board of directors get together on that and have a meeting, and the membership get together and approve this?
Well, we're under a legal consent order that tells or instructs us that we cannot have membership meetings until the court case is heard on April the 21st, is my understanding. What we've been told is, by our legal counsel, is that the consent order essentially becomes non-existent after the court case and depending on the judgment of that court case. So we can't have membership meetings, which, as you can imagine, trying to revitalize a company and recruit new applicants without being able to have a meeting to tell them about the objectives and the strategic goals of the company makes it difficult. So no meetings means no group long discussions. What I found is a forum where I send out emails about operational topics and tactics. For instance, training opportunities or recertification opportunities is the forum in which I share those things. The revitalization plan, as I started, is a concept and a strategy from a leadership's perspective. So it has not been shared with the membership, will be shared with the membership. Some of the items are marked as draft because they should be discussed either at the board level or in some cases at the membership level, but I can't do that legally until after this judgment. Yes, sir.
I just wanted to take an opportunity to thank all of the volunteers that responded this weekend. I know there was sure a lot going on in the county from one end to the other, including way down on Slate Mills Road.
Yes.
So I did want to take a moment and thank all the volunteers and the paid staff and the sheriff's office for all that they did, and also for the power company.
Yes.
I know those guys have been out working nonstop, and I see our rep from REC in the back there. And I know I went to Culpeper last night, and I think I saw 3 crews on my way to town, so that's very much appreciated. I did hope that a weekend like this, as terrible and exhausting as it is, it also gives us an opportunity to see what went well and maybe what we can improve on. So I do hope that we take this opportunity as we have in the past with Winter Storm Riley, and I know the terrible power outages we had last winter, that maybe the Public Safety Committee could take this up on their next agenda and review if there's any opportunities that we need to look at for the future.
Good idea.
Thank you.
Thank you, sir.
Thank you.
Thank you.
All right, now we have public comment. Anyone wishing to speak, if you'll please be recognized, and when you come up to the mic, give us your name and the district that you are in. And given the number of people in the room, I'm going to try to limit it to 3 minutes per person if anybody wishes to speak, and then we do have some people on Zoom as well. Anyone wishing to speak during public comment? Yes, ma'am.
Hi, good afternoon. My name is Gail Crooks. I'm the Director of Social Services, and I just wanted to take advantage of the public comment time to just announce to the public that April is Child Abuse Prevention Awareness Month, and we have a number of activities that we are inviting the community to participate in with us. And as Dr. Grimsley already noted, we are partnering with the schools this month for a coloring contest for the pre-K through 3rd grade, and then a T-shirt design contest for the 4th through 7th and the 8th through 12th. And we're going to be displaying the winners of those contests and the runners-up. You'll be able to see what these kids have produced down at Sperry Fest, because we will have a tent down there. We are recreating our garden from last year into a super garden. So what's going to happen is around the community this month, you will see some different pinwheel plantings of our little blue pinwheels. They're already up at County Admin in the library, and they'll be at the schools. They'll be at the food pantry. They'll be at the CCLC. They'll be at the Headwaters, our current host sites, and we're looking for other opportunities to plant some more gardens. But if members of the community would like to take a picture with them at one of the gardens, and if they will hashtag it, Rap Child Champion, we'll be posting those to create an album of all these child champions in Rappahannock. and we'll be drawing some names to give some of the people special recognition. And then we're going to take up all those community gardens on either 27th or 28th of April, and we will be replanting them at Sperry Fest. And so we will have a garden of, hopefully, if they don't blow away, between now and then, of between 450 and 500 pinwheels. So we encourage everyone to just remember about Child Abuse Prevention Awareness Month. It is a community effort. Last year, in fiscal year 22, there was over 100 children in in Rappahannock County that were involved in cases of abuse or neglect. And so we're looking to make sure that we all know it's all our jobs and it's a shared responsibility and it is something we can do together. So look out for the pinwheel gardens and please take a pic and post it. Thank you.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Anyone else, public comment?
John Beardsley from the Wakefield District. I think you all can see from the number of people here from Flint Hill that the community cares deeply about having an effective and well-organized fire and rescue service. And
Point of order, please. I'm sorry, Madam Chairman, but I do hope that we can address the comments to the board.
Okay.
I am addressing the board.
Okay.
I'm saying I hope you notice that there are a lot of people here from Flint Hill, and we care deeply about having an effective and well-organized fire and rescue service. And I think that we seem to be on the right track here. And I hope, despite some of the regrettable side effects, that we will press on with this and come out with a better outcome. Thank you.
Thank you, John.
Thank you. I just have a quick question. Ms. Smith, are we going to interrupt people?
No, but a point of order is always in order,
So we
as
can,
is a point of information.
so we can interrupt somebody to make a point of order.
Yes.
Duly noted. Thank you.
Anyone else? All right, seeing no hands in the courtroom. Oh, yes, ma'am. Sorry, Sheila.
Yeah, this is my, okay, Sheila Gressinger, Hampton District. I wasn't going to say anything, but of course you know that doesn't always happen. So I do want to praise the people who are working so hard to keep our fire company and our rescue squad going in the Flint Hill area. There seem to have been snags along the way that seem to still be impacting some forward progress. But I do want to express my appreciation for this past weekend when our farm could have been severely impacted. Thank God we had rain, so the grounds were wet, and so we didn't have the dry situation that could have ended with quite a disaster on our farm and in many places. So I do want to say thank you so much that this is going forward well.
Thank you. Monica. Yep, go ahead. Come on. Thank you. That's okay.
My name is Monica Worth. I am in Wakefield District, and I am a past president of Company 4 and a past treasurer of Company 4 as well. I want to just take a moment to say thank you to the people who have been, over the last, 15 years since I've been involved, keeping the lights on and keeping things running and going ahead and showing up every day, no matter how difficult it was, to the best of their ability. And I also want to thank the new people who have come on board to take it from there and carry it into what we need for the future.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Your 3-minute limit is created brevity.
Yes.
We should expand it. This is the best part of the meeting.
Jennifer Alexander, I'm in Wakefield. I just want to say that probably almost everybody in this room has been a volunteer at some point for something and knows that that is very time consuming. It also requires very thick skin because when you're in a volunteer situation, there really isn't there are people who always think that maybe they are the boss when they're not assigned the boss. And sometimes the bosses are not the good ones, but there are volunteers, so we keep them. I spent 3 weeks, 24/7, 3 straight weeks volunteering for the Red Cross in a shelter. And let me tell you, nobody agreed on much of anything. Time of rising, time of breakfast, time of bed, time to be quiet, time to go outside, who slept where. But we all had to pull together. And sometimes people needed to step away for a short while, but they also do need to come back because we all need you. So if you're thinking of volunteering, bring your thick skin because you're needed and you will need your thick skin. Thank you.
Thank you.
Thank you.
All right, I'm not seeing any other hands in the courtroom. We have folks on Zoom. If you wish to speak during public comment, please raise your Zoom hand to be recognized, and Mr. Curry will unmute you. Nope, not seeing any hands on Zoom. I will close public comment. Thank you very much. All right, we need a motion on the consent agenda.
Madam Chair, I move that we adopt the consent agenda, please.
Second?
We have a motion and a second. Any discussion? Hearing none. All those in favor say aye.
Aye.
Aye. Any opposed?
I'm sorry, I didn't hear the end of the table.
It was I.
Yep, thank you. Do you want to take a recess?
Do the presentation. Wait.
Yeah. But it's up to you.
I'm going to take a quick recess so we can get sound back. Part of the consent agenda was a resolution of appreciation and commendation for Jackie Estes upon completion of service to the Public Safety Committee. Jackie, if you'd like to come up. Resolution of appreciation for Rappahannock County Public Safety Committee member Jackie Estes. Whereas Jackie served the citizens of Rappahannock County for over 15 years as a member of the Public Safety Committee, serving as a citizen representative, and whereas during his tenure on the Public Safety Committee, he was dedicated to the betterment of law enforcement and the fire and rescue programs of Rappahannock County, and whereas he sacrificed countless hours as a volunteer firefighter emergency medical technician for the protection of the citizens of Rappahannock County, and whereas his consistent advocacy to the Board of Supervisors for the welfare of the public safety community has earned him the admiration of citizens and fellow firefighter and rescue personnel, and whereas the members of the Rappahannock County Board of Supervisors will always consider Mr. Estes a respected friend, now therefore be it resolved that the Rappahannock County Board of Supervisors extend its sincerest thanks to Jackie Estes for his service on the Public Safety Committee and in other local public safety positions, and wishes him all the best in future endeavors. Be it further resolved that this resolution be spread across the minutes of the Rappahannock County Board of Supervisors for all citizens to reflect upon the service and accomplishments of this dedicated public servant, adopted this 3rd day of April, 2020.
Thank you, Jackie.
Thanks a lot. Thank you.
Thank you, Jackie.
Pagers work in this building.
Yes. Next, we have appointments. Rappahannock County Water Sewer vacancy due to resignation.
Madam Chair, I'll jump in here. We have two good applicants, and having served on the Rappahannock County Water and Sewer Authority for some time, I think I have a pretty good sense of what's needed there. It's a great team right now, and they seem to be firing on all cylinders as a group. I really appreciate the two applicants' qualifications. I think both would bring great experience to the board. I'll just move this discussion along and put forward a motion with gratitude to Mr. Tyler, but I'd like to put forward a motion to appoint Will Lloyd as a citizen representative to the RCWSA to serve the remaining portion of an unexpired term that expires on July 31, 2024. So it's a short span of time in which maybe our appointee will decide whether or not he wants to continue doing it, but I think it's a great service to the community. And thanks again to both applicants.
I'll second.
We have a motion and a second. Discussion.
I just have to say, as the supervisor that represents this district in which this authority conducts itself out of, that I really believe that somebody that is on this authority should have a link to the water system through either living there or some sort of link through the community. And I really appreciate that Mr. Seiler is a member of the Methodist Church, and he's been interested in this position for quite some time. We received his application at the last time that there was a vacancy, and he has shown a continued and ongoing interest in this position. And when I spoke to some members of the authority, I thought that their impression was he would make a fine addition. And so I certainly don't want to make a short-term appointment like this a contentious item on the agenda. I just wonder where this is coming from, because I really thought the authority had reached out to you all to talk about their preferences as well. Was that not the case?
No, I didn't talk to anyone. Nope. And I think I recall.
Is Sherry on Zoom? She had indicated that she may be available. Sherry, if you're available, you can put your hand up.
I can say I did speak with Sherry. I reached out to her.
Oh, okay.
I'd like to say I don't harbor any hard feelings, but Mr. Lloyd was very vocal and not always friendly on social media. And I think that we have to be very careful when this board appoints somebody, they actually represent this body. We need to be very considerate of that.
And Mr. Seiler has always shown, to my mind, like I said, an ongoing and renewed interest in this position. And I know just from having talked to him on occasion about different topics of county concern, he's always, and this is not a representation on you, Mr. Lloyd, because I appreciate your continued dedication to the broadband meetings. I mean, you really were very dogged in your interest in that, and I do appreciate that very much. But Mr. Seiler just really exhibits the level-headedness and experience that I think is required for this appointee. But we have a motion and a second on the table, and I've made my case. As I said, I don't wish to make it contentious, but this was not my understanding coming into this meeting.
Yeah, I mean, I recall that my predecessor on the Board of Supervisors, not immediate, Bryant Lee, appointed me to the Sewer Authority, and I think the idea of the appointment was to place someone on that board, and I recognize the importance of your point about having people on that board who have a connection to the wastewater treatment system in Sperryville. And I don't know, I'm trying to remember how many board members in total there are, but I know that Ms. Woodard, Mr. Sharp, and Mr. Haley are all business owners in Sperryville. And so I think that in terms of sort of a Sperryville wastewater treatment system representation on the board, that community is well served. The users are well served by those three individuals. And one thing I recall from my time on the sewer authority is level-headedness, since you brought it up, is really critical because you are constantly hearing from customers of the system, and when things get tough and there might have to be rate increases, it's good to have calm voices on that board who can think through and then articulate what needs to be done to keep that very old system in operation. And again, I think we have two great applicants, and I hope that next time around, when there's a vacancy, that that Mr. Silo will apply again.
So the vote's a done deal?
I don't know, we haven't voted, so, yeah.
I am interested if anybody's got grant writing background. I know we have both applicants in here. Have you done any grant writing? No? Okay. So it sounds like that would be of benefit to the authority.
I mean, I think that's a topic for another day, and I did speak with some of the authority members over the weekend, and I do have some thoughts on that.
All right, we have a motion and a second. All those in favor, say aye.
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 Aye. Those opposed?
Nay.
Thank you very much, both of you.
Thank you for both being here.
Thank you very much.
Where are we now? Old business. Company 4 had a call, and town boundary line change request.
So just note that the Company 4 was placed as a presentation item, but given the earlier request in consultation with you, it was added twice to the agenda in case there was any
Further.
action that needed to happen after public comment. I don't know that there is, but
Is there any action that needs to happen?
I think
Then
so.
can we strike this item from the agenda so they don't have to come back?
oh, I think you just passed right through it.
Yeah, I think we can pass over it.
Okay.
Town boundary line change request.
Yes.
Oh, Madam, at this point, Madam Chairman, I'd like to recuse myself on this topic. And I'm going to have a seat in the jury room until we move on to the next agenda item.
Okay, we'll come get you.
Thank you.
Ms. Smith, do you mind explaining why you're just?
I think I have mentioned in the past that I had a note from the county attorney that due to a family member's work on some items with the county or with this town, I had permission to continue. I was under the impression it was okay, but just in self-reflection and thinking about the future, I've decided that to avoid any semblance of impropriety, that I would recuse myself on this topic.
Okay, thanks.
Thank you. No, Mr. Whitson, if this is you or Mr.
I can
Curry?
speak
Yeah,
to it if you'd like.
why don't, there's some more recent developments that I think Mr. Curry is probably most up to speed.
Just want to make sure I got that down as a note. So the board is aware this has been a long-running discussion with the town. And citizen is interested in having their parcel brought entirely within the town limits. The town has expressed an interest to do that. Over the last several meetings, there has been discussion about the tangential items and then those items that were directly related to the parcel to be brought in. And something that came up here related to the zoning of the parcel that is to be brought into the town, and an interest for it not to support housing. And the town passed a resolution stating that they, I guess, concurred and would signal that they would not have, they zoned the parcel such that it was commercial and would not allow housing. But resolutions are subject to be voted on today and then voted on differently tomorrow, and there was interest to bind that into the boundary line change. And so in doing that, the town did agree at their last meeting to include a statement within the agreement that states that the zoning was fixed and couldn't be changed without concurrence from the Board of Supervisors. The town attorney, Mr. Krim, reviewed the Code of Virginia and has stated that if that sort of matter is going to be appended to the agreement, it becomes a settlement agreement within the terms of Chapter 34 of Title 15.2, as opposed to just a boundary line agreement with no tangential concerns, which can be accomplished under Chapter 31 of Title 15.2. So Chapter 34 requires a slightly different process, and Board Docs has some of the information repeated. And you see Board Docs is going through some growing pains here, and they keep changing things. So we got different size fonts and all kinds of stuff. But there are some links at the bottom for the Commission of Local Government, including a voluntary settlement overview document that runs through the full process. The process for a voluntary settlement agreement, both bodies have to agree on the terms of the agreement. That agreement is then sent to the Commission of Local Government. The Commission of Local Government then holds a public hearing. The Commission of Local Government prepares a report, sends that back to the communities to see if it's in the best interest of the Commonwealth. Then the localities, the town and the county would have to adopt ordinances, which require public hearings, to affect that change. And the document could change after receiving the report of the Commission of Local Government. Mr. Krim suggests that could be a 6-month process. The first step of all of that is to settle on the language of the agreement.
Yeah.
And so the agreement that's attached is the most recent boundary line agreement that was agreed to by the town, but still includes references to Chapter 31 as opposed to Chapter 34. And so that wording needs to be tweaked a little bit, and the exhibits and plats need to be prepared. So I think that brings you up to speed on where we are in the process.
Thanks a lot. And I know Mr. Frazier raised a really good point. I don't know if it was last month or the month before, which was that potentially the one call it tangential item related to the core agreement that could be problematic if the town acted unilaterally to reverse it is the provision regarding housing on what's currently a zoned commercial property where housing is not a by right use. And I do want to thank Mayor Whited and the town council for their patience and then working through what I think is language that satisfies entirely Mr. Frazier's concern. I also want to thank Mr. Frazier for his input in this regard. So the additional language, I think, there you go, is quite direct. And I think because it falls inside of the agreement as opposed to certain of the other sort of tangential items that we are seeking in parallel with the agreement, I think this has strong binding effect. And I will confess I was not aware that this provision, once added, would require review by the Commission on Local Government, which is disappointing. But if that's the process and we can't schedule a public hearing until that process is completed, so be it.
So at this point, notwithstanding the specifics of getting the exhibit language correct relative to the plat and that information and modifying the reference to Chapter 31 to Chapter 34, at some point this board is going to have to accept this language as appropriate to be submitted to the Commission on Local Government, or this language as modified for A, B, and C, and have to match what the town does, so that we can step into the next step of that process.
I'll move the discussion along. I'll put forward a motion to accept the terms of the proposed boundary line settlement agreement in principle and authorize that the agreement be submitted, however you wish to do it, to the Commission on Local Government for review. And that's it.
I'll second.
We have a motion and a second. Discussion?
I think I could vote for this if we know what we're doing with those other issues.
Do you,
So the other issues are as reported at the last meeting, and the town voted on them by resolution, which could be fickle. The one I think most dear to your perspective is relative to the ARB. And the way that request went from the county to the town was town zoning ordinance exempts town buildings from the zoning ordinance. We would like the same treatment. And so the town's response was to remove that exemption for town buildings from the zoning ordinance, so the zoning ordinance applies to town buildings and says, there, now we're the same. That's how they handled that. They have not agreed to exempt county parcels. They've basically agreed to apply the zoning ordinance and ARB, which is in it, to every building in the town, whether it's government or not government, county or town.
Yeah, I know that, but that doesn't mean they can't change it back.
That is, it would take public hearings, you're absolutely right.
and then, I'm sorry, go ahead.
I'm just wondering, I probably should have read but did not, the Commission on Local Government, who are they, why are they, how do they get involved?
They're generally involved when there are disputed annexation problems, but there's also this voluntary settlement agreement, fast lane.
Yeah.
And if you were including these other matters, and I didn't have any towns in my last county, it was wonderful. So I didn't deal with it at all. But having read the sections and the guidance information that they have on their website, which I think I've never been to before last week or 2 weeks ago, it's just, they're set up, they house within DHCD, and they handle the ugly ones where the towns and counties are fighting if there is an actual annexation suit. But they also handle the easy ones.
Okay.
And they don't touch the super easy ones that have no terms and just move along.
Is there a moratorium against annexation?
There's a moratorium on annexations for cities into
Cities.
counties, but not towns.
Okay, thank you.
All right, any more discussion? Hearing none, all those in favor say aye.
Aye.
Aye. Any opposed?
We've got 6 months to get the other thing fixed.
Right.
Thank you.
Maybe it'll be quicker, I don't know.
Okay, Ms. Smith?
Yes.
You're always welcome to join me for town council meetings.
No, the last time I went, they were in violation of the law.
On the monument, I remember that. Oh, there's.
All right. Restricted
You missed some
issuance
big
of
stuff.
land disturbance and building permits.
You heard all the laughter and cheering.
Yes, this next matter was brought to the board's attention by Treasurer Nick. She suggested that she could be more effective in her collections if the board fully leveraged state law as it relates to the types of permits that can be withheld if people are delinquent in taxes. I spoke to you last meeting about this, that there were a couple of different ways it could be done. I looked into the ordinance and discussed it with Mr. Goff, and believe that the best way to do this is simply to add a single paragraph to your Chapter 151, which is your tax chapter. And there's a section right now titled Violations and Penalties. And basically just added the language straight from the state code, massaged a little bit to convey it appropriately to this section that would fully leverage the treasurer to coordinate with zoning, erosion sediment control, building, so that those folks can withhold permits if people are delinquent on their taxes. I didn't have specific language for you last time. I do this time. If the board would like to move this forward, we can schedule a public hearing at your next meeting.
I'd like to make a motion that you go ahead and schedule this for public hearing and take care of any advertising necessary to that effect.
I'll second.
We have a motion and a second. Any discussion? Hearing none, it's a roll call vote.
It doesn't have to be.
No?
No, just for
Okay.
the public hearing,
All
to
those-
advertise.
All those in favor say aye.
Aye.
Aye. Any opposed? Thank you.
Thank you, Ms. Nick, for bringing this to our attention.
Yes.
She might have it just on his background noise in her office.
Virginia Tourism Corporation Grant Match Opportunity.
It's on you. Oh, one of us, we can both talk to this, I guess. Ms. Smith brought up at the last meeting that in her past locality where she lived, there was a very precise process that groups could use to seek funding for some similar restricted dollars. We don't have a defined process here. Reviewed the state code more carefully with Mr. Goff. That's 15.2.38.19. And that is the section that speaks to the 3rd, 4th, and 5th percent being restricted for tourism. So in that section, which I've highlighted here, it speaks to those percentage, and it requires the board to consult with local tourism industry organizations. It's not clear what those necessarily are. It's not clear whether we definitely have one of those. One could argue that Business Rappahannock is one, but it's not really clear. And then if you don't have one, then it requires a public hearing prior to making a determination relating to how to attract travelers, et cetera. So Mr. Goff's perspective was it's just safest to have a public hearing if you want to allocate funds. The funds that are in the budget that are lined out for the different uses, those were all subject to public hearing last year for your budget and for all those uses. But the chunk that was set aside for tourism other, to parse those out, Mr. Goff believes that it would be smartest to have a public hearing. Added to that, this board might want to develop an application process of some sort to have some consistency with the information that's needed so you can make informed decisions. I sent a request out to the Virginia Institute of Government asking for people if they had those processes, and I didn't get anything valuable back. There may be some, if I make a targeted search, you don't always get response there. It depends on how busy people are when the request goes out. So that's where we are. Ms. Jewell added to the agenda today the budgets that were just provided very recently, yesterday and a couple days earlier, for the two groups that came to the board. Asked you to consider funding, providing some of the funding for these uses. Again, we would caution you and tell you to hold a public hearing. There's no requirements for what a public hearing is. Doesn't say what kind of notice there is. I would assume we would do something similar to what you do for your budget, which is at least once 7 days in advance, advertised in the newspaper. We can speak to the proposals that are here. We can schedule a public hearing. For the budget next year, the recommended uses from staff and ultimately those included in the adopted budget will be subject to the public hearing for the budget. So you'll have that taken care of there, but if there are extra uses for extra money, then you'll have to handle those separately.
I just wanted to take a minute to let Sherry know that we've already gone through that agenda item as relates to the Water and Sewer Authority, and Mr. Lloyd was appointed to the Water and Sewer Authority by Mr. Whitson, Mr. Carney, and Ms. Donahue. So I just didn't want you to be waiting for that agenda item that had already been transacted.
There's lots of variable business on the agenda today, so.
So I would just say, I find myself in, I'm not sure how to feel about this agenda item because it feels to me like we submitted a letter of support for doing this.
We didn't submit a letter.
For this program.
We submitted a letter of support for them to seek the VTC grant money. We did not say that there would be any match coming.
Okay,
Yeah.
so we haven't committed the county to the grant, to the match.
No.
I mean, how do we feel about putting money into events? Because before we were in the business of getting ourselves out of money into events, putting money into events, because we initially had the farm tour. And then it seemed to be the will of the board that if anytime we did that, it would strictly be on an incubator basis. And then once that event had legs, we would be out. which I think is a healthy approach, and I still think that's the best approach. And so here we have two events that are well-established events that I think we can support them through the sheriff's office and through other means, security, things like that. But I don't know that I want to be giving money to an event, because I'm sure we can all think of lots of kinds of events that we don't necessarily want to be giving money to. So how do we pick and choose which events get money and which don't? It's a slippery slope, and I think it's all very well intentioned, but I don't know that I want to spend money even to advertise a public hearing to hear how people feel
You're
about this.
absolutely right, I hadn't connected the dots, but, I mean, Amosville has the best carnival in the county right now. And the board doesn't give them any money, neither do they ask for it.
I would argue that the board gives Amosville a lot of money, but
Not for the
not for the
carnival.
carnival. Yeah.
And without a doubt, I mean, I'm open to,
Yeah, so
be.
these
checked
dollars are
on that, but-
restricted, and so if not for this sort of use, then the board needs to think about what type of use for the FY '24 budget. Help me here, if it's 4 and 4 or 5 and 5 or 6 and 6, I think all of the restricted money is consumed by allowable uses in the budget, is that correct?
I think with the advertised 6 and 6, there will be additional,
Was
Other
was that like
tourism money.
17 or something?
no, even at 6 and 6, there was more than the 17,
Okay,
yes.
so you will have this problem going forward?
Yes.
I don't think it's really going to be a problem, Gary.
Well,
I think there will be plenty of things that we can spend this money on.
Tourism things.
Yeah.
Tourism-related things
Sure.
that we can spend this money on. And I don't want to be in the business of events. That's just me and my feeling, that it was okay on an incubator basis. We were very thoughtful to get out of that business. And if there's a change on this board and we're now into funding events, I'm curious to hear. And it's been several years since we discussed it. I don't think you, Mr. Woodson, or you, Ms. Donahue, were on the board when we funded the farm tour. Maybe we were just wrapping that up. And I think that was before your time, Mr. Carney. And that's not to say that I just don't know how you all feel. For me, we had definitely made a point to get out of the event business. And I think there will be a problem if we're funding events. How do you pick and choose what events to fund?
Well, I think we need a process, first and foremost. Like, we have restricted tourism dollars. We have to do something with them. So, we need to figure out how we do what we do with them. Whether it's giving it to the park, or somehow the sheriff has tourism capabilities, whatever. I just think that we should figure that out. And I think that process is going to take a minute.
Well, we will
Before
have.
we start, because just to finish, is that I really don't want to just start kind of saying, oh, okay, here, and then the next year we don't do it, and then it's like, well, why did you do it that year? I think it's just so much clearer for folks. And that's a process that we should go through. And then the public will, the interesting thing about this is that I don't even know that the general public knows what's going on here, because this is kind of technical. We have this percentage of a tax that is dedicated to tourism exclusively. We don't have an EDA, we don't have a tourism department, and we don't have the things that I think most of the localities do. When this was enacted, it was like, oh, well, they'll just kind of funnel it over to their tourism department. Thank God they have that. We don't have that.
Right.
So we kind of just need to set up some guide rails for what it is that we want to do moving forward, because like Gary mentioned, this is recurring.
Well, and we also have ordinance language that the Planning Commission is currently developing that will make additional requirements for folks to possibly have fire and rescue on site. And there may be associated costs with that ordinance. And honestly, I think there's a lot of things going on as to how agriculture is used that will be promoting tourism on agricultural venues. And that will be a challenge for this county. And this gives us a revenue stream that we can tap to be able to address those challenges.
I think you both make really good points, and so the question is, we're going to have because of our meals and lodging tax structure, we are going to have some funds every fiscal year that are restricted in final end use. So the question is, how do we establish kind of a plan for hearing possible end uses? That's the bottom line. And Could be events, it could be other things, it could be augmenting EMS and fire presence at events, it could be any of those. And I think you're right. I mean, here we're talking about events because we're sort of backing into the funds that we have. So the question is, how do we more comprehensively look at end uses for the funds that must be used for tourism?
Yeah, Sheriff's Department staffing too.
I have a question. So how does does the person who sits at the visitor center ever get paid?
Yes.
And how do they get paid?
Counties, it's in this budget that uses.
tourism budget?
Yeah, it uses
Okay.
some of this money, and then
Some.
what's left over is, what are you
Yeah.
gonna do with it?
Yeah.
That's a, part-time employee. We used to have 2 part-time employees, now we have 1 part-time employee. Maybe we'll have 2 again in the future.
Right.
Are there any events that we support in some way today?
As Ms. Smith noted, before the restricted tax came about, because you were only charged 2%, there was funding provided to the farm tour, and the farm tour was, kind of their money was running through the county's books. So they kind of got pushed out of the nest, and they've been self-sufficient with their advertisements, sales in the book, and things like that. Right now, there's funding provided to RAC, which is a match to the VCA grant, and they use it for their general programming, but that is in the tourism budget. That was in the budget, contemplated budget last year, and then a supplemental to bring that grant money into the budget.
Yeah, I think it would just be good to identify what it is that our values are, you know? It's like, you take a look at the comprehensive plan, take a look at what it says, and say, we'll hear from the public, and then we can start to create a process through which we can start doling out these tourism dollars.
Arguably, based on what Ms. Smith said, in September, October, you could increase paramedic staffing at Company 7.
Totally.
I mean, it could be.
If, every other day, there's an accident on
Sheriff's
Turnbridge.
Department, if there's problems with the roads and there's maybe some of the venues for certain places, Sheriff's Department might need to be there. There's a lot of possibilities that are, coming to fruition as commercial, or I don't want to call them commercial, but tourism-related uses keep creeping into agriculturally zoned areas, which, that's not our choice, that's coming out of Richmond. And so, this gives us a pool of money to try to address those concerns, which is critically important.
So what do we do here?
Yeah.
I mean, do we have a public hearing to hear from the public what we should consider in the future in the way these funds are applied, or we not have a public hearing because we're not talking about events?
If you're going to allocate the restricted dollars, I think you hold a public hearing. The language is confusing, whether it's just Art and I parsed the language, where are the commas, and is this only about lodging, or is this about the whole thing? And at the end of the day, we just said, you hold a public hearing, it doesn't matter.
And I do just want to say,
When you allocate it.
I like these events. I think everyone knows. I love the farm tour. I have very dear photos from Phil Irwin from the farm tour. The last time he was on the farm tour, some of my favorite photos since I've been on this board. But I know that Phil, as much as he loved the farm tour, and I shouldn't quote him, but I don't think he would want us funding the farm tour either. So I just want to say that my feelings on funding events is not a reflection on these events. And I certainly participate in them, but I just don't want to get into the habit of having to pick and choose who to award dollars to and who to leave out. I don't think that should be a function of this board.
Let me ask you this, as part of the annual budget process, say in January, February, March of each year, couldn't we set a date, put an ad in the paper that says Rappahannock County has funds that are restricted to this use, and by this date, businesses, organizers of events, or other interested parties may fill out an application regarding how these dollars could be used, something like that. And that way we're not backing into, we're gonna just hand money over to support marketing of events when asked.
Yeah, you would allow the community to speak to you through some application form. I would say narrow down to today, if there's not an interest to fund these two things right now with this pool of resources that doesn't go away, I mean, it's just gonna sit on the side and
Right.
keep track from an accounting perspective, then there's no action needed right now other than recognizing this is going to be a topic that we need to sort through. And at some point in time, it would make sense to develop some sort of process to figure out how we can use it for county expenses that are attributable to tourism, which Bonnie's doing in this budget year, but there might be other things. And then anything else outside of that. And we can tackle that anytime the board wants to. It doesn't have to be now.
Okay. Yeah, I think we should do it, so we can figure it out.
Yep.
You guys want to talk about it sooner than later? Do you want to have it on next month's agenda?
It's May.
I mean, I agree. I mean, Ms. Smith brings up a good point that, you know, if we can use these, if there are events in the county that require fire and rescue, can we just use a lot of this money to just reimburse them, to pay, help that presence be there?
I think so.
And that could cost a lot of money eventually. But that could be built into the process.
Yeah.
You know, that's part of it. It's like
It's a priority, you know.
Yeah. You can build these things, but I think that it's a smart thing to do instead of, because we've talked about it a couple times. It's like, okay, well, hey, this ain't going away.
Right.
Let's figure it out. So I'd be on board with talking about it next month and kind of fleshing it out.
Okay.
I remember I'd mentioned sending it to the rules committee maybe, but, you know, that's probably a little bit different.
I mean,
more-
I tried, I followed up with Mr. Curry to ask if he could reach out for resources that might have guiding language so I could bring something back to you all today, but there wasn't anything out there. And then I thought, well, is this really something we want to do anyway? I mean, I'd much rather see, if there's tourism dollars out there, like, I would rather see some money spent on, we talk about slowing people down around the villages. We have an opportunity, a lot of the villages have small planting and small signage at least, if not plantings, in their entrances and exits. And we could do small plantings and additional, you know, tasteful signage to encourage people to stop and enjoy the villages and also encourage them to drive slowly at the same time. Those sort of markings of place and a visual idea that you're coming into somewhere different than the open countryside would be a great addition to all of the villages to have, you know, an appropriate beautification and identification program. Something like that, I think, that benefited all of the villages and maybe was a county-wide approach rather than an event maybe in one place that may not have a trickle-down effect. I'd like to be even-handed with this money.
Yeah, that sounds like it could be part of our plan. I mean, let's just build it.
All right.
Is the May agenda going to be overly full with budget and potential?
No.
No.
Who knows
Okay.
what the message is going to be relative to
I just
budget.
didn't know if it made sense to
Yeah,
wait
you'll
until
have public
June.
hearings at night.
Well, let's agree, let's punt it to June.
June?
Yeah.
And we'll reach out to more localities to see if they've got anything that
I
they
guess
just couldn't get.
especially localities that don't have economic development, tourism.
Who's that?
Highland, do they?
Yeah,
Oh, Highland probably does.
probably.
I
Probably.
guarantee you
Maple.
Highland has a very robust economic development.
Maple fuzz, syrup.
Anyway,
All right, thank you.
Pancake.
Yeah, they go from 5,000 people to 50,000 people in a weekend.
Classification and compensation study.
Yes, so the update for this month is we have now received from the consultant the final pay scale with all the updated positions on that. What needs to happen next is I need to work with a couple of departments where the job descriptions and the classifications changed enough where those department heads will need to tell me who fits into which of these classifications now. So that's the next step. I've had to put this on hold for just a little bit while I've been focused on the budget, but we'll pick it back up as soon after the budget as I am able to do so.
Great.
Thank you.
Thank you,
Thanks.
Bonnie.
Thank you.
thank you.
Full-mounted speed display signs.
Last month I told you I wasn't able to do anything. This month I've done almost as much. However, I have been in contact with the company that we've discussed and looked at their signs, and I've provided literature. As of April 1, they are affiliated with a national purchasing cooperative And if we join that cooperative, then it would streamline the purchasing process for their devices. And so I did include here information for that. It's the buy board. It's out of Texas. And there's all sorts of things on here, you know. You can buy a Kubota tractor, for example. Just caught my eye. But if the board would authorize me to execute that agreement following review and approval by the county attorney, it'll streamline the purchasing part of the equation, and I'm still working on the permitting part of the equation.
Well, then I'll move to authorize the county administrator to execute the National Purchasing Cooperative interlocal participation agreement for which Radar Signs will be a vendor starting April 1st.
Second.
Following review and approval by the county attorney.
I still second.
Okay. We have a motion and a second. Any further discussion?
Is this just for this one item, or is this?
It's for anything, but
we might use
awards
it to our
of
advantage
certain
later.
magnitude still have to come to the board. So
Yeah.
it would just satisfy the purchasing side. And for example, the Radar Sign folks said that part of their bid to the cooperative was a 5% discount. So, you know, the different businesses provide preferred pricing because they think they might be able to get some volume out of it. And so it helps there, and then it streamlines purchasing.
Okay.
All right. We have a motion and a second. All those in favor say aye.
Aye.
Aye. Any opposed? Thank you.
You're now on G7,
Correct.
was the new agenda item.
Yes, sir. Discussion, can you remember what we were discussing with regards to?
A legal.
Legal.
Yeah, I think it's very commonsensical that if attorneys are going to be representing the board in any action, then they would have some interaction with this body. I don't think we've been served very well by what's transpired in the past in relation to the way that it's been handled. Frankly, this is a very new process. Whenever we had, the boards previously had anything to do with attorneys, we always met with the attorneys. So I don't understand why things have changed in the last 2 or 3 years that, you know, attorneys just feel that they can file things on behalf of the board and they never talk to us.
I can say that certainly if there is a will of the board for me to tell the attorney you will, or somebody from your organization will show up on this date, I'm happy to do that.
Well, like I said, I just think it's commonsensical. I don't understand why we're not doing it. It just doesn't make any sense.
In the past, we've always gotten updates in closed session.
I think the only reason I see this as being different, and I am definitely not an attorney, is it's so specific to, did we have the right to do 2713 or did we not? So I'm not sure what we would discuss in closed session, I guess.
I mean, I guess until we sit down with our attorney and have a discussion, we would be only speculating as to what we might discuss.
Well, that's the problem. We don't even have a copy of the filing. We'd have to go over here and get a copy.
Oh, I believe I forwarded that to everybody.
Not with Mr.
Caps?
Jeremy, yeah, whatever he filed. I didn't remember seeing it from here.
If I didn't, then that was a mistake on my part. I did receive it from him. I thought I forwarded it to the board.
Do we have an opportunity to do this during our budget hearing on the 17th?
I don't know his availability, but if it's the will of the board, like I said, I'll tell him that you asked that he be here.
Do we have any dates where we're getting together prior to that?
No, this April 17th is the next meeting, and that's a little complicated. We'd have to probably find a separate room in the school. I think we did that once before.
Sounds familiar.
Maybe when you're just meeting there for pandemic purposes.
I'm sorry, I missed that beginning part. So do you folks want to talk to the attorney in closed session?
I mean, we always have.
No, I didn't mean that. Sorry. You want to speak with our attorney?
We always have.
Yeah, like I said, I just
In
think
the
it's
past.
commonsensical. It should be common courtesy if he's going to file something on behalf of the Board of Supervisors of Rappahannock County, that he would just confer with us before he did that.
And I would I have no problem getting an update from our attorney, but I'm, at least from my position, I'm gonna be very reluctant to automatically go into a closed session unless there's some strategic issue that we somehow would provide input for. I mean, if we're just getting an update from our attorney, I just want to cut to the chase here and say I would not be comfortable going into closed session to get an update on a filing that's already been made that's in the public domain.
Well, I mean, it's a legal proceeding, and that's why we go into closed
It's
session.
in the public
because
domain, but I have to go over to the courthouse to get a copy of it. That's the problem.
we don't know what will be said.
Right,
And where it
well,
will go, and that's why we go into closed session, because we shouldn't say things in open session that could jeopardize the board.
okay, well, we can cross that bridge when we come to it. I just wanted to state for the record that, as Ms. Donahue articulated, we're basically in litigation over a narrow question. I don't think it serves the public well to go behind closed doors when there's no reason to do so.
Well,
Okay.
I think it serves the public better if that happens than if this board or elected representatives know exactly nothing that's going on.
Right, so let's try to get an update.
I mean, there's some things that should be done behind closed doors.
That's fine, let's,
And legal matters are certainly one of them, and I just, you know, part of our role as a supervisor is to educate and inform, and I feel like it was said that we go behind closed doors because we're doing something wrong. But certainly legal matters and personnel matters and security matters should be discussed in closed session. And that's why there are ways to go into closed session to discuss those things. And so I just want to make it clear that that's the only reason that I think we should have a closed session to discuss legal matters.
I don't think it's accurate that any legal matter necessitates a closed session is my only point. I mean, if there's not business proprietary information discussed, or if there's not legal strategy that would inform.
I can read this.
Yeah,
statute if
please,
you'd like.
yeah.
So it'd be 2.23711A7, consultation with legal counsel and briefings by staff members or consultants pertaining to actual or probable litigation, which is where we are, which such consultation or briefing in open meeting would adversely affect the negotiating or litigating posture of the public body.
Right.
For the purpose of the subdivision, probable litigation means litigation that has been specifically threatened or in which the public body or its legal counsel has a reasonable basis to believe will be commenced by or against the known party. Nothing in the subdivision shall be construed to permit the closure of a meeting merely because an attorney representing the public body is in attendance or is consulted on a matter.
It was I mean, I guess that's what I was trying to say. It's pretty narrowly defined, but we can cross that bridge when we come to it. So what's the plan? We're going to try to get agreement from our outside counsel to talk to us on the 17th?
I can. That's the will of the board.
You need a motion?
When it's not clear what the majority of the board is, I either want consensus or a motion.
Well, I'll put that in the form of a motion that you contact Mr. Jeremy Capps, is it?
Yeah.
And see if we can have either in person or by Zoom, some sort of consultation on the 17th.
All right, we have a motion. Do I have a second?
If that's the motion, I'll second it.
Motion and a second. Any discussion? Hearing none. All those in favor say aye.
Aye.
Guess
I
it
vote
doesn't
nay.
matter.
I don't have, what's that? I don't have the vote tally.
Right. I know we've got 2 ayes and a nay.
Oh, nay.
Nay. I don't,
Madam Chair, the way that this is coming down is some members of this board have information that others don't. And so are you
say
okay
that?
with that?
That's not, I already said at the outset of today's meeting when we sort
No,
of.
you said that. I just asked the chair a question. Are you okay with that?
I don't know that that's a fact.
I said I
Well,
did.
I don't have this information. Mr. Curry said he has it, but he didn't send it to me. Did you get it?
I don't know if I got it or not. I haven't found it yet. Okay,
What's happening?
we've got a motion and I'm trying to figure out which way I want to go with this. I don't, in my mind, this doesn't, it's not going to matter one way or the other, even if we sit down with the attorney. So I will support it. Yes,
Well, I did ask a question, though. Are you okay
that was
with,
a vote first.
okay,
So
are you
now-
okay with some members of this body getting information before or when others don't get it?
I guess it would depend on the information, the topic. I mean, there's tons of stuff with the building committee I'm sure I don't see and I don't want to see.
Yeah, which is totally cool.
But no, that's not my question. I mean, I'm
is
talking
your
about
question.
legal actions. You're okay, the question is pretty specific, really. Are you okay with some members of this board getting information either before or that others don't get it all?
On an attorney? From an
Yeah.
attorney? I mean, it's a board issue, so I would think the board would get it at the same time.
I think it's great that we're going to schedule this for the 17th, and I hope the
Yeah.
attorney will carve out a time to sit down with us.
That's great.
And, all right, moving into VDOT, second,
Hold on, actually.
sorry. We had 3 for, 2 against.
Right,
Yep.
but that would be an addendum item.
Oh,
added
shoot.
Today,
So you need a
yeah.
5. Then
It's
it
true,
fails.
I'm sorry.
So my question is can you send an email? If you have a question
It's
for
no
our
way to
attorney?
do business.
Well, I'm just asking Mr. Fraser, I was like.
I don't know how we would do that. We're back to doing something piecemeal that the entire board should be involved in.
I don't mind if you have a question for our attorney. I would never say to you, who authorized you to do that? I would never say, you can't do that. If you did that, I would say, great, as a representative of your district, you can reach out to our attorney. I don't care.
I don't think that's
in
the
fact,
proper
I
way
think
to do
it's
business
probably
either.
responsible if you have questions for our attorney to ask our attorney. I would never fault you for that.
But I don't think that's the proper way to do business. If the board is involved in litigation, the board should be able to speak with the board is not one individual. The board is not 3 individuals, except for a vote of the board.
Well, I do work outside these meetings to get stuff done, and I assume you do too. So if in the course of events,
But we can't do that as a board.
exactly, because we can't meet without noticing it. So if you want to ask the attorney, I'm cool with that. And then I'll say, hey, Mr. Fraser, did you reach out to an attorney? You say, yeah. Oh, can you share that information with me? Sure.
I really don't think
It'll
that's the way
cost
public,
less.
I don't think public business should be conducted that way, especially like this.
Anytime you or I talk about county business at the co-op, it is county business.
Exactly.
So we do it all the time. All the time.
But the problem is decisions are being made somewhere, somehow, outside of these public meetings.
No, they're not.
Well, then how did this thing get filed?
We
because
hired a
someone's suing
lawyer,
us.
we hired a
Yeah,
lawyer to
someone's suing
represent
us.
the
Who
board.
authorized him to do that, though?
Probably our staff who's doing their job.
The staff was not authorized to do a specific
We don't need
task.
them to do that. There's
Yes,
no
we
statute
do,
that
sir.
says-
Yes, we
There's no
do.
statute that says Gary can't complete a works day without us walking through everything hand in hand with Gary and saying.
I'm
"You
not
can do
saying that. That is being very
We're
overly
getting
critical of
sued.
what I'm trying to say here. What I'm trying to say is, this is the governing body of the county.
Right.
And if the governing body of the county is involved in litigation, then we ought to know what's being submitted to the court on our behalf.
Well, I feel like I do. I don't feel like I'm being kept in the dark.
You feel like you do?
Yeah.
So
I feel-
you've seen it?
No. I said, I feel like I know what's going on. I've been in, all the emails that you guys have gotten, we're getting sued.
We've
Hired
had
an
no
attorney.
information.
We hired an attorney, agreement was signed, trying to get through this.
Who
Trying to
authorized him
provide fire
to
and
do the
safety.
agreement?
Maybe our staff,
Mr. Curry, you authorized the attorney to
which is what
work
they're
on this
supposed to
agreement?
do.
I authorize the attorney to do what now?
You authorized the attorney to work on this consent agreement?
Consent order?
Yes.
I didn't authorize the county attorney to do anything. The county attorney and I.
This one is representing the county right now. This, from the insurance company.
The-
Somebody authorized a few things to happen.
The county
How
attorney
did
and I
that happen?
met with Jeremy Capps electronically, and
You and who?
The attorney.
county attorney and
Or
I
outside.
met with Mr. Capps electronically, and the county attorney shared with him the information he shared with the board previously in closed meeting, and Mr. Capps moved on with the case.
No authorization after that.
But I'm glad that he did, because I don't want to be stuck there with no representation.
Absolutely.
I don't want to have to sit there and have him text me or him say, oh, we got to do this now, but I can't because we have to have a meeting. Oh, wait, we can't have a meeting. We have to notice it. He's supposed to do that. And I'm okay
You
with
can't
that.
take
I hear
action
you're
without a
not.
meeting.
I hear you're not. He can. What he did, he's allowed to do, and that's okay.
He was not authorized to do
He
that.
doesn't need our authorization.
I just want to.
Where did you see that?
For a minute?
You're just saying he
because
does. You
there
show
seems-
me.
there
Send
seems-
me an email. Show me where he needs
He
that.
represents this board.
I know, but he's allowed to do things without our general
It's the
handbook.
consent.
I just want to say.
He's allowed to get work
In
done.
litigation?
Yeah, he just hired the attorney, and then the attorney does what attorneys are supposed to do, which is prepare
He's
all
not the
informa-
board.
I'll just finish.
The
Prepare all
attorney-
the information
Hey, guys.
so that we can actually figure
The
this out.
attorney is assigned by the
Or
insurance
whatever.
company.
Yeah, there you
I
go.
just sent the insurance company a copy of the lawsuit. They assigned the attorney.
So,
I didn't sign anything to say, okay, you're our attorney.
but my original point was that if you have a question for the attorney, I'm just genuinely curious. How come you feel like you can't send him an email?
Because this is a board and I don't work behind y'all's back.
Well, no, that wasn't, my previous point was is that you do talk to your constituents, you know. It's,
My constituents are my constituents.
I know,
They're
but
not my
technically
colleagues on the board.
But that's technically county work. So when you talk about anything that's county related with any of your constituents, that's technically
That's
work.
not decision-making, sir.
Does that matter?
Yes, it
And-
does.
Well, not to me. And what I'm saying is that in that context, just in that
Do
context.
you have the
if you
supervisor's
want-
blue book that spells out exactly what our,
Yeah, I do.
I gave him a
If
copy.
you want.
have you read it?
Yeah. So if you want to
Excuse me.
send an email.
Yeah, you've read it. You've read the entire book.
Not the entire thing. Okay.
So
I
then
probably
then
know
really
what it
right now, you're just talking platitudes. You really don't know what you're talking about, right?
I don't
You guys-
really probably know a whole lot of ever what I'm talking about, but the point is that if you wanted to send an email to our legal counsel, I 100% support that, and I support you in doing it. That's it.
And the consent order was sent to all of us, and that was on
Not during the construction of it.
February 10th.
Not during the construction
Well,
of
we
it.
all received it on February 10th.
We didn't know
So
what
you
he
didn't
was
know
agreeing
that you
to.
received it on February 10th. I'm just saying that's when we received
But
it.
there was a pleading after that. Something has been submitted after that.
Yeah, I thought I sent that to you, but if I didn't,
I don't have anything from this attorney that he submitted to the court.
okay. I made a note to make sure I check back and see if I sent it. If I didn't, send it.
I should not have to go over here to the clerk's office to rummage through records to find out what someone is sending to the court
you're gonna
on
check your
behalf
email.
of this
Completely
board.
agree, completely agree.
Just
Check
go
your
ahead and
email
check your
and
email.
send it to us.
All right.
All right, we are on to the VDOT secondary six-year plan preliminary discussion. And we have VDOT in the house.
Sausage making at its finest.
Thank you for
a
hanging
Yeah,
out.
VDOT
yeah,
representative.
sorry
in
about
there.
that. We also have an REC rep,
Yes,
Madam
we
Chair.
do.
I don't know, did you want to, I mean, certainly you're not here for entertainment
Oh, he
purposes.
is.
I mean, do you want to say anything about REC? I mean, we certainly want to thank you all for hitting our county so quickly and efficiently after the windstorm.
I really appreciate that. I have nothing publicly to say other than I'm just here to you guys.
Enjoy Rappahannock County.
Lucky you.
All right,
All right, but seriously, thank everyone for the work this past weekend. It was unbelievable.
the speed was fantastic.
I have a generator, so I wasn't worried, but still, thank you.
Yeah,
So every year, the board has a responsibility to allocate funding for secondary road funding, the secondary six-year plan. And as we've discussed in the past, that it is a six-year plan. You're allocating projected funding over the next 6 years. Most of that allocation of funding goes towards hard surfacing gravel roads. And we don't say paved because it's usually not bituminous asphalt pavement. It's, chip seal or something like that. So you're hard surfacing a road. And most of the time when you do that, you're using the rural rustic program, which allows more or less a pave in place. Shape the road, get it proper dimensions, improve the ditches a little bit, but you're not meeting full secondary road standards, which would cost a ton of money. You can do the rural rustic program and and hard surface road. So this board went through that last year, and you developed a priority list, which is shown on the screen. Next road up is, well, you have the first section of Kaiser Run, which is just about done. It's been shaped, and it's going to, I guess, receive its hard surface here before too very long. The next section of Kaiser Run to the rear, all the way to the dead end, will be coming up next. Following that will be Horton Hollow, leading from the Lazy Mills side, coming back this way. The part in the middle of Horton Hollow is too narrow to fit into the program requirements for rural rustic, so that'll be a gap. Then Pullins Bluff Road, which is connecting Gid Brown and Horton Hollow. And then the first section of Turkey Ridge was added last year, which extends from O'Bannon Mill, which comes off 522 at the Culpeper line, transitions to Turkey Ridge, and then that is 1.6 miles to the bridge. This was the first half of that, 0.8 miles. So there, at the end of the 6-year plan, based on the projected revenue in these out years and the known revenue from recent years, there's approximately $562,934 approximately dollars that would be available to allocate to that new 6th year, because we're jumping forward in the plan. Last year, the board reviewed several different road candidates. I've printed and put at your place one of the documents that's posted here, the tracking table. And that tracking table has been keeping an eye on the decisions of the board over the last couple of years as to various roads that are eligible. You have to have 50 vehicles per day and meet the geometry standards. And the second section of Turkey Ridge is still kind of eligible, as is Mill Hill Road, which in since 22, when it was considered, there was conflicting support on that road. You had people write you saying, please do it, and had people writing saying, please don't do it.
Refresh my memory, where is Mill Hill?
Mill Hill is off of 522, Riley Hollow, Hiddles Mill. So that's 1.8 miles. They just passed one of the fish pass, or PEC did a fish passage up there. The other roads last year, Swindler Hollow, Sycamore Ridge, Gid Brown Hollow, was discussed after that public hearing. Let's give those a pause and not be looking at those again. Long Mountain didn't meet the geometric standards. And then Massey Mountain, Long Mountain, Holland, 2 sections of Holland, Mount Marshall, North Pose, and Grimsley. Those folks have all come out and said, please don't touch my road. I don't want motorcycles to be buzzing around, and we prefer it to be gravel.
Yeah, I have had some feedback recently on Sycamore Ridge, so I would like to advertise that for public hearing this year.
Right. So the reason we're here today is to decide which roads you would like to include into a public hearing notice. And there's a draft, which is here, which right now includes Turkey Ridge and Mill Hill. Easy to add any other sections the board would like. I've got those little step-in signs to drive discussion. And then next month at the May meeting, you'll have a public hearing. You'll hear from all these folks, and then you'll decide how to allocate that $560 however many $1,000 in that 6th year, or not allocate anything and just pause and allow those dollars to compile for another year and make the decision the year after. Sorry for the long-winded discussion. I just need to know what to advertise.
Thorough discussion.
Yes. I would like to keep Melville on.
Yeah, you guys were so generous as to add Turkey Ridge last year, so I feel like it's got to be outside my district this year. But Turkey Ridge, those folks would love to see that hard surfaced. But I think, Ms. Smith, to your point, I think that I've heard some people talk about Sycamore Ridge.
Well, we're getting that bridge done this fall,
Right.
which will be a great improvement. And then there's a really steep area on that road. And I had some complaints about it recently. It gets really muddy when it rains, and I imagine it's a challenge to keep gravel on. And I just think that that might be a real improvement. And school buses do run back there. So, it is an area of concern that I've heard from a lot of people on Sycamore Ridge.
Sounds like the very beginning of a motion.
Yeah, please add that.
So is motion to advertise Turkey Ridge, Mill Hill, and Sycamore Ridge?
That sounds like it would work to me. Thank you.
Is that what you said?
Yes.
Second.
We have a motion and a second discussion.
One thing, you'll notice Long Mountain Road, and this, this is the portion, this is a portion from Rock Mills going east. And I know I had talked to Mr. Nesbitt, and I understand also from the column note here that that portion of Long Mountain Road does not meet the geometric parameters needed for any kind of paving. But with that understood, I recall a conversation I had with Mr. Nesbitt about the possibility, I think you call it maintenance paving. Is that the term?
Yeah.
Yeah, just like paved areas that wash out, I guess, or paving areas that are prone to washing out. And there is ongoing resident concern about the variability of the quality of that section of Long Mountain Road. And I accept that you're not gonna pave it, I understand that. But I wonder if you could come back to me and let me know whether there isn't some other option that would just stabilize that part of Long Mountain Road.
And I think part of the beauty of maintenance paving is it's not planned in that way. So if it were to happen, it'd probably be because terrible maintenance was happening and they weren't planning for it.
Right.
The one thing I know.
Like, or it certainly wasn't asked for by the board.
Sorry.
Okay. I see. I'm not smart on all the nuances there, but I mean, I have constituents on Long Mountain Road who are always on me about the road. And so if we fall short on it meeting the requirements for any kind of paving, then I just want to know what other options we have. That's the bottom line.
Thank you. And the only thing I need to say, because every time I'm in Chester Gap, which is a lot, they ask me about the roads. And so anybody from Chester Gap listening to this, the roads that get put on this list are state maintained, correct? Or
Yes.
yes, state maintained roads. And there's only, I think, 2 on all of Chester Gap. So I am hoping somehow we can figure out another way to help the citizens up there, because some of those roads are terrible. All right.
We did look into, we got a cost estimate to upgrade one road to secondary standards, and it was just
$600 and some thousand
ridiculous.
dollars, crazy. So, all right, we have a motion and a second. All those in favor say aye.
Aye.
Aye. Any opposed? Thank you.
Thank you all.
Thank you all for
Thank you
sitting
very
through.
much.
Thanks a lot.
Thank you very much, Walter. Please give Mark our best.
School building bidirectional amplifier systems.
Coming out of the tabletop study in the schools, I think it was last summer, one of the things that was discussed was the portable radios on the public safety radio system do not have coverage in our schools because they're so far away from the transmit and receive sites that are in Culpeper and Fauquier. That's what we bought, and it works surprisingly well in our community and in light construction buildings like houses or timber built type things. But when you get into a heavier steel building and a big building, they just it's not reliable to use the trunk system. So that led staff to reach out to L3 Harris and their installer, who installed our mobile radios, SSC, for quotes on provide and install bidirectional amplifiers, PDAs, into the schools. Basically an antenna on the outside that pushes signals to antennas on the inside and repeats outside traffic in and inside traffic out, so that portables work inside these schools. This is a project that I did in one school in my last community. You can see the proposals, $48,000 and $53,000. They're not cheap projects, but I wanted to make sure I brought this opportunity to the board. This is, of course, a one-time project, one-time use of funds, funding, and ARPA funding freed up by other public safety payroll or maybe even direct ARPA funding. I'm not sure if this is eligible or not. It's infrastructure in a way.
I heard those children were tourists.
Yeah.
When we were purchasing these radios, way on back there, 4, 5, 6 years ago, I thought that they worked off of Wi-Fi as well.
The Harris radios can work off of Wi-Fi. It's very tricky, and if anything changes in the Wi-Fi system in the school, then you'd have to reprogram the radios. It's really not a reliable system. I have no knowledge of whether the APX 8000s that were received through grant that Chief Carter applied for and received $670,000 or so dollars. I don't know if they work with Wi-Fi. I don't think it's a public safety grade connection to rely on whether the Wi-Fi is working or not. If there's a fire and is the Wi-Fi working, you could still have the BDAs not work. But this is the public safety solution that's not an.
Well, I can see this and I might support this, but I'm just wondering, they're not using that capability?
We are not, because it's just too complicated. Fauquier's attempted to use it, and they've struggled. And I understand Fauquier's moving away from the Harris portables as well.
They're the reason we're in this.
I wasn't here.
Good answer.
No, the Motorola equipment is, 1.5 to 2 times more expensive. So this would work. This is doesn't care what the system is. It's P25 compliant, so it doesn't matter whether you have a Harris radio or a Motorola radio. This technology works for any portable. It would also allow the schools to make use of the trunk system inside the buildings if they wanted to. In the future, when we finish our grant that provided the Harris radios, those radios might be of use to the schools.
Who's going to be in charge of this system when it's installed?
That's some mixture of county and schools. And Dr. Bolt is a facilities on their side, and similar to the generator, I guess. The schools is now responsible for that from an O&M perspective.
We haven't been real good with that in the county up until the last year or two.
I think we're getting better. So this is an opportunity, plugs a gap that was identified during those tabletops. It is a lot of money, but it is a one-time use.
Well, then I'll move to appropriate $102,000 from the general fund balance to a new capital improvement fund budget for school BDAs and award the work to SSC.
Have a motion, do I have a second?
I'll second it. Motion.
Motion and a second, discussion?
I think we're gonna need a lot more information as this process evolves. Please update us regularly,
Sure. We can even get you in the schools with a radio and use it.
or just a standing agenda item will work. I know that there are a lot of challenges with the Harris radios, and it's very unfortunate. Communication's critical.
For the record, the Motorola radios won't work in a school either. I mean, it's just the signal is not strong enough through those heavy buildings today.
For either one of them.
Yeah, because they're portable. They run out of battery. They have a low
Right.
power amp. Whereas a car, if you drove the car inside, it would probably work. We don't usually
But
do
it would
that
not be very secure.
because they have a higher power, radio.
All right, we have a motion and a second. All those in favor say aye.
Aye.
Aye. Any opposed? Thank you. Safer grant.
As the board is aware, the county did receive the SAFER grant. I think in one of our recent meetings, I told you we didn't receive the SAFER grant because we had heard nothing. And then, lo and behold, we did hear. So $561,617. The documents award package is attached and has previously been provided. They didn't fund everything, almost everything. But I must accept the award by somebody must accept the award by April 23rd. And so I'm here seeking authorization from the board to do that.
So moved.
That's what you want.
Second.
We have a motion and a second. Any discussion?
Yeah, so just thinking, if we're gonna actually hire somebody, whether it's part-time or full-time for this retention and recruitment with the volunteers, it's gotta be somebody that knows how to talk to volunteers and has respect for them.
Well, I think they probably need to have been a volunteer for a big part of their life.
Current situations in the county are not good.
Understood. That with plenty of challenges going forward, and feeling that this will be one of them. But it's 4 years, so that's great.
We have a motion and a second. All those in favor say aye. Aye. Any opposed? Thank you.
I'd just like to thank the Public Safety Committee, who I think was the genesis of this, right? It was the Public Safety.
I've been talking about this for like 6 years, but it never went anywhere.
And finally, it has, so thank you to the beginning of the discussion genuinely, and then the Public Safety Committee, and you and
Yeah,
Mr.
Mr.
Bolster
Bolster did the heavy lifting.
But it took 6 years to get the grant?
Anything worth doing takes time.
There you go.
And so getting a recruitment and retention safer grant might keep us from applying for the paid staff one for a long time, let's hope.
Yep.
Thank you.
Yeah.
All right, moving into board committee reports. Building committee.
Oh, well, excuse me, try that again. The building committee met earlier this month, I think 13th or something, I don't remember.
13.
And we discussed what we were going to do as far as putting out a a day or maybe like a weekend, a Saturday, to have the corners staked. I don't know where that process is right now, where we are in that process, but we'll stake the corners of the physical size of the structure, the proposed courthouse structure, and perhaps, weather permitting, we might have a balloon to give some sort of an idea of height, and perhaps have some sort of screen set up so that people can see over here at the old admin building what has been proposed as far as the geometric shape of the building. So we spent some time on that, and we're still working on getting the documents together for putting out bids for both the church and the sheriff's office work.
Excellent.
It involves so much money that they will come back here before we actually let the documents out. That's pretty much it. Mr. Curry, I hate to put him on the spot, but he was supposed to be contacting
Yes.
Racer for some dates.
I have not. Well, we narrowed down the dates based on
Racy.
the calendar. I think it was the
End of April.
second and 29th, maybe Saturdays in
Last two
April, at the
weekends
end of
in
April.
Yeah.
So, fortunately, the grass is starting to grow, so the stakes will be a big pain with lawn mowing, but we'll make it work.
Well, maybe we can get some goats.
We have plenty of those in the county. Recreational Facilities Authority.
We continue to have really good meetings. The playground committee just had its first meeting. I can't wait to hear an update about that. We got the tree work done. Thank you all so much for appropriating that money. And we're blazing away, having a good time, really. Getting a lot done. There's a lot of energy. So I'll look forward to reporting back to you guys about the playground committee's first meeting. They met at the Sperryville Firehouse, and I'm sure that they had a fruitful meeting.
And Fodder Stack Race.
And Fodder Stack Race, April 15th. Wait, yes.
Any idea how many have registered?
Nope, not yet. I'm sure we'll get an update. He knows? Yeah. What do you got, Josh? I haven't heard from Jonathan in a while.
Jonathan sent me an email a while ago, 317, I believe that's.
Oh, wow, that's good. That's good.
Excellent.
A lot of pizzas
Yeah.
after the race.
Yeah, there's
Yes.
gonna be pizzas and fun and all kinds of great stuff, so.
Where do the pizzas come from?
Foxes, I think, is what we've done.
Yeah, last year we did Foxes.
We used to,
So
we
folks can just kind of munch, get their carb load after.
used to have, so I help out with the post-race gathering, and we had tried food trucks, and frankly, people finish the run, they just, like Van said, just want to eat something. So last year we had, we all contributed and had sodas, water, and free pizza, and the pizza goes quickly. And we'll have Gold Top County Ramblers, and then there's this brewery, I don't know if you've heard of it, it's called Penn Druid.
I'll probably be this year.
And so there'll be beer, pizza. I mean, what else do you want after running, right?
After a race, right?
Get all dehydrated.
To feel really sick, yeah.
But that's high and that sounds like a good high number. Thanks, Chuck.
Yes, sir.
It's
Yep.
awesome.
Yeah.
Public Safety Committee, Mr. Whitson, I don't know of anything that we,
Well, I'm trying to remember when we met. Do we meet? Yeah, we met in March.
Yep.
And it was a good discussion, and there was some response time data that came out of that meeting I thought was pretty interesting, and I believe the Rappahannock News, Randy Ryland picked up on some of that data. I think our on-scene average response time is in the 12-minute and 42-second range.
Overall. Something on scene.
Yeah, something on scene, so that's encouraging. Ms. Smith made a good point earlier about this past weekend, and that was another topic of discussion during the meeting, and that is when you have significant incidents, it is worthwhile and to review how things went. And during the Public Safety Committee, there was a lot of discussion about a UTV accident on Sunnyside Road, and that was, I think, certainly for the family involved, an incredibly good outcome in the end, but very scary. And on the response side, so many companies were involved, both volunteers and our paid folks, that there was a discussion about what could be learned from that. And then there was another fire-related incident that folks on the Public Safety Committee thought would be good to discuss after the fact. So I think what came out of it is trying to come up with a coordinated system to have these kinds of call reviews after they occur. And so hopefully at our next meeting, we'll hear more about that. I know that Chief Burke was kind of thinking out loud about how that post-event discussion and review could happen. So, but I think it is, to your earlier point, it's important when we take these big weekends, big days, or big events to figure out what worked and what didn't, and then improve upon the system there for.
The only thing I had, there's a mock event at the school in April. Do you
Yes,
remember
there's
the date?
it's intended for the seniors as they're planning prom. There'd be a mock vehicle crash with a fly out and quite a production. So I think it's along the scared straight lines,
Yeah.
See what physics really means, and please be careful.
All right, Rules Committee.
We did not meet. I was planning to meet if we'd gotten any language back, but we didn't get anything.
Planning Commission.
We, of course, met and reviewed 2 tourist applications and the zoning administrator's report. It was a tale of 2 applications. One was universally panned and hated by the neighbors and objected to highly, and the other, the neighbor showed up to say what a great thing she thought it was.
Wow.
So, it's always interesting, and we did make recommendations to the Planning Commission for approval of both, one with quite a few conditions on it, and you can imagine. And then the other thing we did was work quite a bit on the public event access ordinance.
Thank you.
And Vice Chairman Light has really done a great job helping us dial in that language with assistance from the county attorney as well.
Awesome.
And of course, Mr. Curry.
Yeah, it's super important.
So you
Thank
should
you.
get that back soon.
Can't wait.
Fire Levy Board, you did meet.
So we did meet. The Fire Levy Board met last week, or the week before, can't remember, to discuss the policies and procedure documents that we as a board sent over to the fire levies for review from Spotsylvania and from Fauquier that were given to us by Ms. Jewell to have a look at. And we had a really robust and I think a really good conversation. And we decided that we all agreed that in order to kind of create more transparency and oversight and efficiency and just clarity in this process of, for at least what the fire levy board does, which is budget reconciliation, that we could recommend some things to do from these documents to the association, to then have the association, if the Board of Supervisors so pleases, to send it to them. But that it would really require, and we were all unanimous in this, total buy-in from the volunteer community and total transparency on our end and their end, and that it be truly a dialogue, not, hey, you need to do this. This needs to be a discussion. And the things that we recommended were generally to start out third-party accounting and preferably a CPA. Cash handling policies and procedures, and credit cards specifically. And I'm doing this off the top. What's that?
Accounting software.
Use dedicated accounting software, QuickBooks, and then alternate audit and review. So every other year you do an audit, every other year you do accounting review, and I would think it would be a 909 or whatever, 990 that the CPA would furnish. But that, as a fire levy board, we talked about those things and as first steps, so that next month, as we can properly talk about it as an agenda item, kind of review these first steps that we could do, have a discussion here, and then if we decide that this is what we want to do, then send it to the association to have them discuss it.
Good.
Thank you.
That's what we did. Yep.
Sounds good. All right, moving into the reports. Anything we want to highlight?
I don't think there's anything, I mean, obviously, I always refer you to the cash graph,
flow.
and you can see where things are there. You do have the counting of sales tax, which, you know, we're not seeing the giant leaps anymore.
Yep.
But in there, and then the meals and lodging tax, you can see is similar. You've got the big bump from the tax rate change, and then we're not seeing the giant increase, which is good, because that's what the forecast is based on. Well, it's not good, I mean, we'd love to see big jumps, but
But it's still leading.
it is, that's good.
In our, on meals and lodging, do I remember correctly, it was 993,000 for FY '23? Is that the right number?
No, that's sales.
That's sales? Oh, you're
Sales
right,
is
sorry, it's
993.
so it's
630, 530 was
what was our,
FY '24.
okay, what was our projection?
Before, for 4 and 4.
At four and four with the trend in FY '23, I'm just trying to remember what our projection was and where we stand.
For FY '24 projection, for 4 and 4 was $530,000, $132,000 per percent increase if the board goes that direction.
No, I mean, but for '23.
We were on track,
Okay.
to exceed.
And 993 was our projection for sales, and we're ahead of that.
Yes.
Okay.
Numbers swirling around.
But
Yeah.
the point is that, trust me, I'm engaging in self-initiated cognitive tests at all times.
Are you passing?
I'm not going to admit really one way or the other. But so I mean, to me that's informative that our projections in FY '23 were accurate, because I know we kept with this year's budget review, we kept saying, "Oh, are you sure your projections aren't too conservative?" And it seems like the methodology to arrive at the projections on sales and meals and lodging tax revenue for FY '24 are largely the same. I mean, it is the same methodological approach that was used in FY '23, more or less.
Yeah.
So,
I am generally more conservative, and the board guided us to be a little more aggressive with sales tax and meals and lodging tax, and it's turned out just fine.
yeah.
And so I think looking at the projections, 12-month projections, things are looking fine. We're just not increasing like this anymore. So I think that projection is easier to land on, hopefully, as long as it doesn't.
Don't do that, Karen.
Yeah.
Don't make that animal.
Nobody
made my
knows what the
stomach hurt.
revenue is going
Don't
to
do
be.
that.
It's just a forecast, and so we state our assumptions, and then we go forward, and if those assumptions don't play out, then we are here and we discuss what to do as a result.
We pivot.
Yeah.
Okay.
In your report, I noticed DEQ. States.
Yes, so at the Eileen factory, I don't know which property, there's the drinking water well there. It's been having some difficulties. It's a nearly 450 well. Turns out the pump was only 120 feet down and was running dry. Nobody really knew why it was only that shallow, so a new pump pipe was put in 300 some odd feet down, and it'll run it dry as well. So it is providing about a gallon a minute. Not great for anything other than using, sink and toilets and things like that.
Do we have a record of what it used to produce?
The documents say 40 GPM. So maybe the earthquake, who knows? I've talked to some people about maybe fracking, and they said that won't work in this rock. So that took it from the way back burner pile and put it on the front burner pile. So I did some research, sent a letter to DEQ saying, I don't think we really the county needs to be involved in this anymore. It should run with the land, it should be the responsibility of the current owners, et cetera, et cetera, et cetera. And I got a letter back from them that said, you know what, you're right. So we're out. And
That only took 6 years too.
yeah.
Wow, congratulations.
Yeah.
So that's good. Now the condominium association is responsible to sort that out.
Great.
Okay.
At what savings to taxpayers?
Well, I mean, the annual power bill has been like $600 or something like that, which has allowed it to be on the side burner. But this new well, I agreed to pay 25% of it because of their obligation to the church, which was $1,200 when it was all said and done. And so that's it, done, paid for. It's all yours.
Great. And then the leachate project.
Leachate project, it took us forever to get the permit from DEQ to change from a pond to tanks. We finally got that permit. Labella has provided me with their bid package. I sent back comments on that, and so hopefully they'll get those cleaned up and we'll get that bid out, and that's a capital project funded, and we'll stop hauling rainwater to Lynchburg, which will save money.
Gary, I think we moved up the building committee meeting for this month. Do you remember what date we have that on? We moved it up thinking that we would be marking the building corners.
The 13th. It was
okay.
the 13th, yeah.
Thank
Pretty
you.
sure. So we're hopeful that that will get done. The FY24 budget assumes that it will get done. If it doesn't, it might slide. The leachate budget is funded 80% with general fund balance, just as a hedge against it not getting done. But it's one-time money rather than dedicating recurring funds to that. We're paying a ton of money this year for leachate, partially because we're drawing the pond down as low as we can to do the project.
And one final report question. This was on emergency services. We are designated at a training center through Health and Safety Institute.
Yeah, Mr. Polster, because there's such an interest in CPR classes, and Mr. Whitson brought this up, and it's sometimes hard to get that training here. So now we are a training center, and we can, we'll be bringing on trainers, which are some of our staff and some of the volunteers in the area who have the right credentials, and they'll be able to actually conduct the training and issue the credentials right here. It'll just be a lot more flexible to get that done, whether it's community or volunteers or staff.
That's awesome.
Yep. All right, anything else under reports section? Nope. Okay, matters presented by the board. Mr. Frazier.
I don't think I have anything right now.
Ms. Smith?
Let's see, Sperryville Rescue has sent out their fundraising letters for the year, and any generosity folks can help with that is always greatly appreciated. Company One is having an Easter breakfast on Saturday morning, which is something I look forward to every year. And then Company 7, Sperryville Fire, their gun raffle drawing starts today.
Company 2?
Oh, sorry, Company 2, I'm so sorry. And then Company 5, Castleton, their gun raffle drawing is scheduled for April, I believe, so there's still time to buy tickets there as well. Sperryfest is coming up. It's just getting to be that time of year where we're starting to hear more and more motorcycles out to toward the drive, which is it's good because it's money, but you do sort of wait for the sirens. So it's getting to be that time of year. And I'm sure you all saw the post from the national park. It looked like we avoided a real problem last weekend. There was a big fire at the entrance, and it looked like they've been able to get that back up and working again, which is great. So big thanks to them for keeping people moving through the county happily. So that's everything I've got.
Mr. Whitson?
I have three quick things. First of all, I ran into Medj Carter, our local VDH person who many know and admire, and I made some joke to her, what are we going to do when you retire? And she said, I am retiring May 1st. So, yeah, so I wonder if you would all agree, and I'll certainly work with county administration, if you're so inclined, we recognize her service to the county by way of a board resolution. I just didn't want to unilaterally decide that, of course.
Of course,
Yeah.
Yeah. Does that sound like a
support it.
good plan?
yeah.
Yep.
Sergey's not leaving too, is he?
No. As a matter of fact, it's a gift that gives. They're all on our insurance. It will be.
All right, and then the second thing I have, and this might be a question for Mr. Polster, I was approached by a citizen, not one of my constituents, who brought up the AED issue, which we've been talking about a little bit, and her suggestion, which I thought was a good one, and I'm glad the Rappahannock News has Ms. Shanahan here. She wondered if there was any way that we could publish in the paper a list of AED locations. And I don't know if Mr. Polster or dispatch or anyone has a list of AEDs and where they are currently located. I know there's some that are kind of behind the scenes. I know, just having been around the county, there's some that are out in the open, but I guess in the interim period, before we figure out a broader deployment plan, I just think it is a good idea to get the word out about where they are so people are at least mindful of that in case of an emergency.
I did hear that there was if they don't have it already, there's a project for dispatch to have a list of all of them.
I don't know. I'll look into it.
Yeah.
And we did apply for the public access defibrillator grant funding, but we're not so sure that that's going to come through. PATH didn't fund that, and we don't think the state will fund it either, but maybe that's something we need to reach out to community members to fund.
Yeah, and then the last thing I mentioned to Mr. Curry in passing after a meeting, I just asked the question, and I was reminded when Ms. Smith was reviewing the planning commission meeting. I just asked the question out of curiosity if localities would ever have the authority to cap the number of short-term rentals. And you analogized it. I forgot what your analogy was.
Solar. Some localities are now placing a cap on utility scale solar, say 20 acres, period. That's our share.
Oh, yeah, that's right.
And so it occurred to me that maybe that same authority could extend to X number of tourist homes. That's the right number for the community before it really digs into affordable housing. I don't know. I was just kind of spitballing.
Yeah, I just raised that, and I mean, if
Yeah, I don't see how you could do that,
I mean, I'm primarily asking in the affordable housing context. And I've always said, that the 10 and 20 acre limit for ag and conservation properties, it helps because the little properties, of which we have very few, are arguably left in inventory for people to live on or rent. But it's incredible how every month it's just one after another. And I recognize that, there are questions of property rights and everything else. I'll research it a little bit. Maybe we can talk about it this summer, but I'm just curious if localities have ever.
We can look, and I don't know if any of the solar ordinance has been challenged. But,
And I would, Mr. Henry requested some numbers from the Commissioner of the Revenue, and it does seem like even though we continuously approve these tourist homes, or they're approved by the BZA, there are always a number of them that seem to fall out of inventory as well.
Oh.
So that number seems to be, it was sort of counterintuitive to me, but the numbers that were reviewed by the Planning Commission were relatively stable numbers.
That's good.
But I do think that it is a challenge that we need to look at as a locality, and if there are ways that we can help address that and some of the concerns around it, that would be great.
Yeah, and I think, for me, the key is maintaining a fine balance between sound land use, policy, and decision-making, and then obviously alternative revenue streams. But if I remember correctly, if you take the subset of lodging tax revenue, the subset that's attributable to tourist homes, I believe maybe it's 45,000 a year or something like that. I don't know where I got that number, but another cognitive
I don't know
test.
if we have that granular. We know how much we receive from those intermediaries, but not everybody uses those. So
Yeah.
as that law changes, it might get clearer for us.
It's not a whole lot. I mean, for a long time, it was like less than $10,000 a year. Now, obviously, there's other indirect revenue generated by people being here, but anyway, just a thought. I'm sorry to take so much time.
No, am I right in thinking, however, that the SUP that allows for a tourist home conveys with the property?
It depends on how it's approved. There could be conditions with a time limit, and
But if it's
we
not
locally have been
strictly-
bold enough to say
Right.
that the time limit could also be linked to the ownership, right? So
Well,
the
here
time
in
limit is
Warren,
the same as the ownership.
They don't allow it to transfer. So if someone was planning on buying like a B&B or a tourist home with that conveying, then they would have to, I guess, do a contingency and then have a application in front of the governing body.
I think the planning commission generally recommends that there be an ownership
Is part
condition,
of
and
it.
I think the BZA generally includes it. Going forward, you might have a greater visibility into that.
Mr. Carney?
All I have is that in light of the high call volume this weekend, I just want to thank all the, rescue, all the volunteer fire and rescue companies, and especially in my district, Company 5, who have just really found a new just mountain of energy and just have so much momentum going there. And I'm just so thrilled to see them sort of revitalizing the company in a way that, it's just amazing for them, in a way that's really good for me. My kids love to go down there and play in their swing set and go whenever they have their fundraisers and whatnot, and it's just really heartwarming to see the membership growing. And so I just wanted to say that, and they just have nothing but my full support. Just a great group of people. So thank you.
Thank you. I've just got a few things. One, Truist closed in Flint Hill, and if anybody has driven through Flint Hill at night, it is pretty clear that is a bank because of the lights are as bright as a UFO. So I've had a few folks ask me if we could possibly now have the lights be downward and appropriate for the area. So I assume, can you look into that for me? Or tell me who
We
to
don't
call?
have an ordinance that requires it. If there's a special exception use for that parcel in the future, it can be a condition.
Okay. I just,
Or the
if
people
nobody's
can
in
voluntarily do it.
it would be nice to turn them off for a little while. The Hidden in Plain Sight presentation was great. It led me to wonder if we as a board would want to have a presentation on opioids. And Sheriff Compton did talk to someone, forget the name, who said they could be here for the May meeting if we want to add that as an agenda item. I just want to make sure you all agree. I just thought education is wise.
It's always a challenge to do a presentation and do it justice, because we also have public business to transact, and often have members of the public waiting for a presentation to conclude. So I'm just putting that out.
That's at the beginning of your meeting, so
Right.
is that like a 15-minute thing
Yeah.
or a 10-minute thing?
That's all I would think.
In the past, sometimes things have gone on for a half an hour or more, and I just don't want to get mired down when.
So it takes us 15 minutes for their presentation?
I wouldn't think it would take any more than 15 minutes.
I'm fully open to it, maybe June or May, whichever one.
Okay.
As you were mentioning, Gary, the May one might be.
Well, at night, you're gonna have
Right.
ordinance public hearings, but
But yeah, absolutely.
Okay.
you could have a presentation after that public hearing. That's how it would fall.
The May or the June?
May, well, both you'll have, because May will be possibly, depending on your action tonight, the SUPSE. And then June, based on your discussion, well, no, I'm trying to think. I might be able to get the other delinquent taxes thing advertised too, so they might both be in May.
Double feature,
Yeah. June, you might have a tourist home.
movie marathon.
And the last thing I have is, I just keep wondering about buildings that are falling apart, somewhat dangerous, and I think you had told me in the past, we don't have anything that we can,
We do. We have ordinance on the book for unsafe structures. If there are a risk to health, there's a process in the code.
okay, all right.
And it does involve the board. And I think you went through it once with the Lombardis, maybe.
I don't know if we actually went that
Yep.
far with that one, but there was one down there.
There are some that rightfully should probably be addressed. It was a staff level thing in my last community. But here it involves the board.
Yep, we'd like to have that conversation at some point.
All right, I'll put together a little brief of how it works.
That's all I had.
Motion to adjourn?
No, no,
Recess.
no,
Recess,
no.
recess.
No, you don't need a
Recess.
motion. The chair is empowered. to
Yes, we're
recess.
gonna recess. Sorry, Van.
Sorry.
That was my fault.
I just wasn't.
Recess until 7 PM.
You could have adjourned, it would have been okay. I was getting ready to jump in.
What if we all
second.